Um, I've been told to speed it up slightly, which is interesting for someone like me. I've had a stutter from the age of 12, so I'll speed it up as much as I can, but if it goes over, it's not my fault. But I'd like to thank Omar for his kind invitation. I've done one or two of these things in the past, but this is a subject that's very close to my heart. I've been a commercial and property agent for 20 plus years. So every day I'm learning, every day is different, and I'll try and pep this up a little bit because I know it's been a long day for us all. I'm going to give you a presentation today on commercial property. That's where I really cut my teeth. I'm going to talk about commercial property. Quite a lot of what I'm going to say has been touched upon, but I think we will come at things from a slightly different angle. And then I'm going to talk about strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats, and where we are 2024 and beyond. I often, and I'll tell you a bit about myself. I saw some of the previous speakers give a bio of who they were and what they do. I didn't prepare a slide for that, but I'll just give you a quick précis. I go out and I do valuations. I give my card over and they say, "Oh, you're a doctor." And I open up their chest and they show me a hairy wart. I'm not that kind of doctor. I can bore you shitless about geopolitics and economics, but I can't heal you, I'm afraid. So hopefully I don't bore you too much today. If we could change the slide. So firstly, I'm going to give you a quick and brief introduction as to who Harpers Co is, what we do, what we specialise in, what we like doing, and the value we can bring to you as an investor, as an interested property partner, or a potential purchaser, potential applicant. Then I'm going to just talk to you about two case studies which are personal to my own heart, one in Welling and one in Whitstable. And then I'm going to talk to you briefly SWOT analysis. I think gauging some of your questions today, all of you, bar none, seem pretty seasoned, so I don't really have to go into the minutiae of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, but I'll touch upon them. I invite you to jump in, dive in, ask me questions. It keeps me on my feet. I like intellectual jousting, so please do. Then I'm going to talk about don't underestimate Doug, someone very special to my heart called Doug. I want to tell you about him, or it, and then emerging trends. If you can turn the slide, Omar. Harpers Co is a multidisciplinary residential and commercial agency. Halfway through my PhD, I got invited to head up Middle East North Africa department for a US Manhattan investment bank. So I and 6 other PhDs, Harvard, MIT, Oxford and Cambridge, had a group think tank. This was directly after 9/11. The Twin Towers came down, and it was obvious that there was going to be a neoconservative administration in the States. The world was going to change, huge impact, and therefore the onset of geopolitics and politics was important, has a direct impact on values, property, expectations, etc. So straight after that, came back to Cambridge, finished up, then I went to go and work for a hedge fund. So I did 2 years of arbitrage, which is a rather complex way of exploiting financial anomalies. And then I was terrible at it, sitting in front of 6 Bloomberg screens all day. I'm a people's person. I like talking. I like going out for lunch. I was like a slave to these computers. It wasn't me. And then I heard that there was a role in a chartered surveyor's office. My family had doubled in it. I come from a restaurant, entertainment, hospitality background, and I wanted to learn how to value property, how to measure it, and how to be more fine-toothed about it. So I went to work for a little boutique firm, and the trajectory of learning was like this. Great. They threw me straight into the deep end. I'd make a mistake once, hopefully not twice, and I'd learn quite quickly. So by the time I was there for 7 or 8 years, I got a good customer base. The area that I'm based in is Bexley, Bexley Heath, Welling. Fascinated today to learn that everyone's talking about Kent. It's great being in central London, and Kent seems to be a really sexy area. Our doors are open, so if you want to invest in Kent, I'll help you spend your money. So please come, I'll put the kettle on. So we're based in Kent. I've traded and bought over the last 25 years in an area called Welling. I know the area well, it's where I grew up, so my family has a business. So heavily ethnic orientated now, lots of Greek restaurants, Turkish restaurants, nail bars, barber shops, with lots of ancillary uppers, rears, good angles as well. So that is a neat, hopefully, trajectory into what I'm next going to talk about. I like commercial property for a whole plethora of reasons, and they'll be obvious to you throughout my presentation. First property on top, the first property I ever bought, came out of university, hungry to get started. I finished when I was at 32. Greek parents don't understand when their son wants to study for the whole of their lives. It's not part of our culture. So they wanted me to go out to work, didn't want to be an accountant. The world doesn't need another bad solicitor. So I thought, you know what, I like property. First property, blue awnings, DTK. Bought that 2006, went to sealed bids, and I had a strategy. In England, it amazes me how people bid in even numbers. 125,000, 450, 560, 1.5. Why? Odd numbers work. Jump into someone's mind. Figure out how you can just turn things upside down. So I bid, I think, £121,656 and 35p. My dad thought I was mad. You know, stretch yourself, you can't afford it, and why an odd number? It worked. I was £1,000 more than the next highest bid without going 5 grand more or 10 grand more. So that was the first one. Empty upper. It was called the Corn Stores. 2 old boys, twins. They were 75, retiring, had bales of hay, rat poison, anvils. In the garden, I found 151 Allegro steering wheels. Bizarre, but fantastic value property. Purchased it, converted upper into a 2-bedroom flat. Didn't cost that much. And it dawned on me quite quickly that there's no evidence to ever suggest that both the commercial market and the residential market are both flat at the same time. One is always outperforming the other. Took advantage of conversion relief, so you don't pay 20, I think the VAT back then was 17.5%, but we got the conversion relief, so I paid 5% VAT. And I could offset lots of capital allowances. So first one really opened my eyes to it. The next door shop at the time was an older barber shop, and the old boy came out, and on the first day I came there, I said, look, I've just bought next door. He said, oh, I'd make you a cup of tea or coffee, but I don't drink tea or coffee. I thought that wasn't very polite, wasn't particularly... Anyway, I think he thought I'd just turned up, I've got hairy brown skin, and perhaps he doesn't want a foreigner next door. However, I learnt that he was in the process of buying it, taking him a long time. I approached the owners. I didn't tell them I just bought next door, otherwise the price goes up. And I purchased it. I exchanged and completed within 28 days. And I took some delight in telling Chris, the old boy, that I'm sorry, but you've got a new landlord. And that was that. So converted that one into 2 bedrooms, 2 shops, 2 bedrooms. At the back, 1/3 of an acre of land. I am now in the process of buying the pub next door. There's a public house here. This was an old bakery in 1880, burnt down. So there's vehicular access down to 1/3 of an acre behind. So that is the chicken or the goose that keeps laying. It's my first property, unencumbered, didn't cost that much. And it's 4 properties at the moment, fantastic double-digit yields throughout. And I don't say this to sound flash. There are people in here who are doing far, far more. But it's just an indication. Omar touched upon a point earlier, and he pulled up his screen, and it said cash is king. There's a brother to cash. It's called knowledge. Knowledge is king too. They both sit and lie in the same bed. And if you can enhance and exploit both, you're absolutely flying. So because I'm quite well known in that particular street, I think I'm a friendly kind of guy. You walk down the high street, oh, hello, Jack, how's mum and dad, how's things, how's business? Oh, I'm not doing great. Oh, but if you want to sell, I'd be interested. So over the last 25 years, you walk around this big bunch of keys and they go, oh, it's that bastard. I've had to calm it down a little bit now. Anyway, so that one's been an absolute corker. I got engaged and I remember not having a penny. I'd spent it all on the upstairs flat. And I remember sitting on one of my mum and dad's plastic chairs with a pizza. We could just about afford the pizza, best pizza I've ever had in my life, and that's worked out an absolute dream. The rents there now have doubled. Back in the 2000s, mid-2000s when I was working, average leases, fully repairing, inside the 1954 Landlords and Tenants Act, were 15 to 20 years long. Break clauses weren't part of the vernacular back then. That there was no concern about strong covenants. It was just as if, you know, it was yours and I could sell it on, you know. The average length of leases, and I deal in the secondary sector, tertiary sector. I'm not a West End agent. I don't deal with Co-op and Tesco's and Marks and Spencer, Goldman Sachs. It's very secondary, tertiary. I like it. It's part of, I think, Margaret Thatcher's Grantham-ite. There's always a shop holder. There's always someone that wants to rent a shop. The beauty with secondary and tertiary shops is that if they are under, I think it's £15,000 or £16,000 rateable value, you pay no rates and you get retail relief. So you're in a front, forward-facing shop, hopefully good footfall. I never, and I touched upon this point having lunch earlier, these two gentlemen were asking for some thoughts and advice, and I said I'd mention it. I don't give a lease for the ground floor commercial tenant, I don't give them a lease on the whole building. I'll happily give them an AST, assured short hold tenancy, on the upstairs, but I won't give them a lease on the whole building. Why? Commercial tenancy law is still on the landlord's side, thank God. Residential law has changed. A residential landlord, excuse me for being crass, cannot fart these days without asking their tenants permission. So if you give them the lease on the whole thing, you've handcuffed your asset. Two, if ever you've got to get them out upstairs, you can't because they're on a ASC or, excuse me, a lease. And also the values in residential lets and uppers have gone up exponentially in the last few years. So why would you want to tie in your yields and your uplift in a 10-year lease with 5-year rent review? So you've got to wait a whole 5 years for the cycle to come round. So it's just, you'll always get more value for your cake if you divide it up into different constituent parts. So that was the first one. This was another one, Whitstable High Street, purchased at auction, blind. Purchased blind, Whitstable High Street, core retail, 3,000 square foot. Clinton Cards was the tenant, bit dilapidated inside. Clinton Cards, one of those old Woolworthy styles. Cards are coming to a bit of a, you know, a hiatus in their trajectory. So, but fantastic spot, beachfront behind. All of us know Whitstable, fantastic oysters, really good beer, and a really good footfall. I don't have to go into what I paid for it. However, that Clinton Cards were coming to the end of their lease. Got a French baby wear retailer, Mama Jojo Baby, came in up ground floor, 10-year lease, £250,000 input in terms of refurb. Fantastic. Good, strong covenant, fantastic balance sheet, golden egg of a tenant. They're now just about to leave, and I've signed up Crew Clothing, high-end apparel. Now, interesting point this, and I want to, all of us talked earlier about commercial, there were a few things that haven't been touched upon today. One of the beautiful things about commercial, in contrast to residential, is that at the end of a tenancy, if you're lucky, and if you structured your lease correctly, you serve a schedule of dilapidations. Now, they can be incredibly valuable. If you've got a strong tenant downstairs, they've got to put the shop back to the condition it was found. So if it's a bare shell, they're obliged to. Now, that can often cost £100,000, for example. In this instance, Crew Clothing said, yes, we'd like to take this shop. There was another 3 or 4 different people, funeral directors, interested in funeral directors for all the reasons that the previous gentleman said. People die, you have to bury them or cremate them. So it has a wonderful elasticity there. But I didn't want to dull that pitch. I want to buy more down here. So if you put a funeral directors in what is a core retail area, you've instantly killed that pitch. You know, how often do you go to a funeral directors? And if you go, you're sad, you're wearing black, and you come back out again. So, no. So, chose Crew Clothing. Now, pretty vanilla terms of lease, fully repairing, yes, of course. Personal guarantees, yes, of course. Fantastic balance sheet, fantastic. How much are you going to spend on doing it up? They said, our average fit out is 110. Well, I'd already negotiated with Clinton Cards. We won't hit, with them. We won't hit you with a schedule of dilapidations if you leave all your fixtures and fittings. They had fantastic clothes, rails, and it was all handmade wooden, inserted air conditioning units. I think there are about 12 of them. And if you've ever inserted an air con unit in a commercial property, £1,500, £2,000 each, I think there was 16 of them. So a significant outlay on their behalf. So when Crew, and I said, look, we won't hit you with a schedule of dilap, but will you leave all this? Suits you and suits me. What I could have done was got the surveyor working for me to go. I didn't really have a lot of time to go down there. I could have got the surveyor working for me, just go down there, serve them with a delapse. But I thought, no, let's find out more. So the point here is get involved. Don't outsource it. If it's a good asset, get involved. Get and scratch the surface and find out what you can extrapolate from it. So eventually, to cut this one short, when Jojo Baby came out, Crew Clothing have kept their fixtures and fittings. It's just about to complete now. Crew Clothing, really, really clever. They will pay every quarter. We've agreed a fantastic rent. They insisted, their solicitor insisted that should there be another government lockdown, another COVID-19 or COVID-20, I don't know how they number these things, they won't pay any rent at all. So I said, well, I'm not having that. So we've agreed at 50%. They also wanted 6 months rent-free. That's becoming an absolute bloody norm these days. People just spring up 6 months. It can be the smallest little barber shop in the arse end of wherever. Everyone's got 6 months rent-free. So I don't give 6 months rent. They ask for 6, I give them 2. They ask for 4, we give them 3. And then I don't want to give 3 months of just zero income. So smooth it. Smooth the rent-free over a year. So all of these are clever things. And if they want rent-free 6 months and you're stupid enough to give it to them, depending on the strength of the covenant, if it's Meghan's or Faux, then of course you will take a view. However, if they want a break clause, you say, okay, fine, I'll give you a break clause, but if you exercise the break clause, I want my 6 months rent-free back. So you always give push-pull, and there's no harm in doing that. So when you're dealing with a commercial agent, okay, they should be clever. They should be working for you. They should have your best interests at heart. And you will know quite quickly the agent for you. So I didn't bring any cards today, but what I would, as a courtesy to my friend Omar, if any of you have questions after this, you'll see my website, and feel free. It doesn't cost you a thing. Pick up a phone and say, hi, Jack, I was there. I have a question. I have a unit. And call me on a Thursday or Friday afternoon, and I'll be quite happy to help. And so that's where a good commercial agent can come through. I hear time and time again, get me this property, mate, and I'll give you a good drink. I don't want that. An envelope doesn't make me richer. What I would like is when I buy and I build it out, I'll bring the properties back to you. And I want to form a relationship with you. I want to sell to you. I want your son and daughter to take over the business, and I want them as our clients for the next 10, 12 years plus. That's how Harpers Co and any good commercial broker business grows. So I like the hedging. Put in five two-bedroom flats application upstairs, 3,000 square feet, and at the back is a cottage with a road that looks onto the pebble-dashed sea. So that was a fantastic auction buy. I could just about afford it at the time, stretched myself a little bit. My little Greek dad thought I was nuts. I think he was going to disinherit me, but it just seemed like a really good one. Thanks, Omar. So strengths of commercial property, we all know, good passive income. You get a good tenant, put them in, 10, 15-year lease, fully repairing, etc. They pay quarter of a rent in advance, quarter of a rent as a deposit, as opposed to a two-bedroom flat. You get a phone call on a Friday night, Jack, my tumble dryer's blown up, come and fix it on a 5% yield. Doesn't a 4.5% yield. doesn't work. So a lot of advantages: growth potential over time, stability. I have found through my own experiences, and I can only really speak on that and on behalf of clients. I've got clients that have done extremely well from commercial property over a period of time. Anyone that wants to get rich quick in commercial property, I think, is one-dimensional, is property myopic. Predictability, I agreed with the gentleman right at the back of the room. We're in a bit of a boom-bust circular economy. That just seems the way that our economy and political structures are. But there are opportunities. One man's opportunity is another man's loss. And then increasing in value over time. After 5 years, you usually have a rent review. They're usually upward only, or collared and cuffed, or linked to the retail price index, or CPI. And it's often, and I was talking to the chaps at the back here, often when you serve a rent review, be clever about it, strike a balance. It's easy to, they were paying 15,000 a year rent, and you hit them with 25. If it's too much, they will leave. You'll have to find someone else. You'll have voids, you'll have unnecessary voids, etc. There's no more empty voids relief. There is a loophole about that. If you want to ask me about that later, you can. But strike a balance. If they're good tenants, they've spent money, give them that sense of comfort. So balance is key. I find some of the weaknesses with commercial property is commercial property interested parties, you, really fall into two brackets. You've got those that come really intelligent, savvy. Straight away you can tell they're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and they're aggressive and they're hungry, and they come to you with a spec sheet, granular. And there are those who just, well, I've seen Homes Under the Hammer, mate, but there's a shop and I really want to buy it and I want to make a takeaway. Now, my gosh, and there is very little in between the two. High inflation of the last few years, that's been an impediment. It's made, for lack of a better word, made the commercial property buying market stutter. Build costs have been prohibitively expensive. Commercial tenants cannot always, especially in my sector, secondary and tertiary, cannot always pass on price increases. There's only so much that you can charge for a haircut, only so much that you can charge for a cup of coffee. So that's been an issue for them. There's also a fragmentation of the sector in that it is very offices have, secondary and tertiary, have been stung hard. Probably all of us have husbands and wives. I have a wife that works in oil and gas, and she now works from home. She was in Wapping in this top floor warehouse overlooking the Thames. Their rent is astronomical. Since COVID, they said work from home. Her employers are getting 130% productivity out of her. She's down our staircase, 8:30 in the morning. She's at her desk 8:45, and she's there until 6 p.m. Doesn't take a coffee break, doesn't take lunch, doesn't go and stand by the fountain having a chat. Did you see the Netflix film on Saturday? All the way through. So, and I think that's a model to stay. I agree that there will be a yearning for MEES compliant commercial at the higher end. That's not the end I'm at. But offices, commercial in our areas are struggling. That's the opportunity to go in with commercial PD and go in and, as Archan said earlier, build out, build up and go wild on steroids. And then governmental flip-flopping. My God. I think I saw this cartoon ad that had Liz Truss and had a lettuce, and it was which one is going to rot the first. And I think the average day, 35 days. We've had significant flip-flopping. We've had a zombie government in Boris Johnson. We've had no rudder steering us. I think we will have a change of government. We will have to wait and see where that takes us. Opportunities with commercial, again, I like it because you don't put all your eggs in the same basket. You've got angles, you can extrapolate, you can take parts off, sublet, rent, etc., etc. Development, we talked about, higher yields, commercial property, often outpaces NASDAQ, often outpaces FTSE 100 stocks, gilts and bonds. And it's brick. My good old Greek dad, he said to me, it's brick, what can you do with it? You can't, it's there, it doesn't disappear. It's not like stocks and shares. So it's a very trustworthy asset. You can visit it, you can change it, you can do things with it. The Golden Goose anchor tenants, I spoke briefly, perhaps, or not so briefly, about them. They are getting fewer and far between. What is a covenant, a strong covenant? It is a good balance sheet. Always ask for a personal guarantee. And if they are reluctant to give one, I and you can start a company at Company's House, John and Jane on Tuesday. You can strike it off on Thursday. You want a personal guarantee. You want something down. You're giving them your asset to lease for a period of time. You've got to have some kind of security to offset your risk. Undersupply in the green market sector. There are very few MEES compliant. It's going to cost huge amounts of money to become compliant, and in my areas, that's going to become an issue. Threats, high inflation, high interest rates. We talk about high interest rates. I'm an old fart. I'm old enough to remember I've traded through 3 recessions. Interest rates, I'm sure we've all heard our mums and dads say, oh, I remember when interest rates were 15 and 16%. Well, that was only for 2 or 3 months, and the average value of a house was about £60,000. It's hurting people. If interest rates had gone up, and I'm very conscious who I'm in front of, Omar knows far more about this than I do, but people were already stretched. I sold something like £250 million worth of houses last year, and I remember selling to first-time buyers or young, upwardly A1, B1 on the socio-economic scale, aspiring youngsters who had borrowed £500,000–600,000 to buy their first house. He works at KPMG, she's in finance, they've got a joint income of 250k, they leveraged all the way up, and had interest rates gone up even more, I think there would have been some really, really hard times. So that's a cautionary tale. I think I agree. I think the new norm is here. I think interest rates will probably dip slightly, but I don't think they're going to dip under 3.25. Again, Omar's the specialist in that. Increasing legislation and taxation. Commercial landlords are being hit hard. There's very few. They're taking away domicility rights. You can't now claim back taper relief on your commercial mortgages. They are being taxed more. And then finally, am I going fast enough?
Yeah.
I'm trying. Thank you.
Very much enjoying it. Yeah.
Thank you. Don't underestimate Doug. And if you could turn over. Doug is geopolitics. A love of mine. Spent 2 years as a financial analyst. I then worked for an intelligence company called Jane's Intelligence. I was a military political analyst, and I did intelligence data, nothing seedy or shady, just really a geek that spent 2 hours in front of a screen every day. And when I went to the States, I headed the Middle East North Africa department. So I had this singular role in heading this department of 8 PhDs, geeks, and it was our job to give political understanding linked with economic understanding to bonds traders, fixed income traders. There was a lack of knowledge in the States post 9/11. The world clearly had changed. It wasn't anymore black or white. There were variable shades of grey. There were different actors. And I'm a firm believer, we haven't spoken about politics or geopolitics, but I'll give you a perfect example that will allow you to see where I'm going, because this will sound somewhat existential, but I want to link it in so as we can all understand. We all know that energy prices have gone up huge amounts. I'll give you a perfect example. Straight after, before the Ukrainian war and the hike in energy prices, David Lloyd, the gym, hospitality sector, their electricity bill per annum was circa 20 to 25 million. I think they've got 45 branches or more, and they had a huge electricity bill. They're now paying 77 mil per year in electricity. So you cannot tell me that doesn't have an adverse effect on their bottom line, and that then passes on to us. You go and play a game of racquetball, your costs are this in 1 month, and then I'm sorry, but due to inflationary pressures, etc., price has to go up. We're seeing that in hospitality. My dad says, the price of cheese, I went to cash and carry and I bought the block of cheese, it used to be 25, now it's 45, my God, and he's pulling his hair out. So that's, all these things have an effect. Gaza war, regional escalation, won't get into the direct politics of it all, but that has a very real danger of spinning out of control. It's called contagion. And whilst it's isolated to the Palestinians and Israelis, we're now seeing an Iranian push-pull, Houthis. It'll only be a case of time before a few other regional actors are involved. In 2024, interesting stat this, Capital Economics and the Eurasia Group, fantastic stat, 49% of the civilized world this year is having elections. We all know that we are seeing the end of neoliberal democracies per se. We're seeing more of a swing, a divergence to either left or right. This will have a huge impact. We have elections in France, we have elections here, we've got an election in these states. Huge impact. Just think, God help us, Trump gets in, we have a more isolationist policy towards NATO, towards the EU, special relationship between Britain and the States. So that has huge impact. All of these affect bonds, gilts, financial markets, and more importantly, buyer expectations, hesitancy. It's hesitancy in the market thus far, which has made 2024 one of those years where you don't know whether to push the button and buy, you don't know whether to sell, you just want to wait and see. Increasing Gulf tensions, and again, increasing European fragmentation. Is the model of the EC, now EU, working? Does institutionalization as a political process, is it cohesive enough? Is it bringing European states together, or are states in times of difficult times, are they acting as individual actors, clearly looking after their own first and national interests? Emerging trends and beyond, the sector presents opportunity for experienced investors to grow and diversify their portfolios. Any headwinds that present will most likely precipitate a soft landing, with cash stockpiling in advance of a European exit featuring as a key driver. This does not mean every commercial property investment will automatically generate great returns, particularly in the short term. Investors should take a long-term view, take care to research their properties carefully, and look for expert support in order to make the best investment decisions in the current market. One of the final slides. Common errors that commercial investors often make. One, they fail to do enough research. They'll drive by, they'll see a Cushman & Wakefield board or a Harpers board, hopefully, freehold for sale, and they'll come in, they don't ask the right questions, they don't do their research. Really impressed with the amount of granular, extrapolated data that CoStar are. I'm an agent, I'd like to speak to you. I think I can probably ill afford you, but I'll try twisting at your arms. I think the failure to research is mind-boggling. The streams of data are either very good or very poor, usually a wet thumb up to the air to get some kind of zeitgeist as to what's going on. Decision-making amongst your average property investor, and they are sporadic, is impulsive. They tend not to understand finance, which again is where Trinity and Omar's expertise comes in. And they think, you know what, it's commercial. I can manage it myself. My God, you're going to be treading on all sorts of different landmines. So get an expert, pay a fee. I'm not a plumber. When I have a leak, I get a plumber. When I need something built, I get a builder. So that's in your best interests. Know and identify your target market. Often, buyers don't know who the other buyers are. The point earlier about going to auctions, I used to do that when I was quite young, and I was fascinated by the little pockets of groups and individuals, and you used to see the same faces, and they've got strategies. That was the best thing I learnt early on. Structure your purchase, a special purchase vehicle. Are you buying it as a company? Are you buying it as a private individual? You may not think at this stage you're only buying one, but if you buy 2, 3, 4, you end up after a period of time when you've got all these properties in your private name. My gosh, I did that, and now I'm trying to get out of that, and it's going to cost an absolute bomb. They're not tax efficient by doing that. By putting it in a company, you pay corporation tax, you put a ring fence around it, and then again ask Omar about the SaaS, which is something that I personally would like to learn more about. And also, the best properties I have found are those with exit strategies. 3, 4, 5 different options. I've been offered a property last week, house, 4-bedroom house, ugly extension on the side. I think I can pull the extension down and create another house. The garden is 220 foot long. I think I can cut the garden in half, sell that at auction. The second house doesn't involve VAT. So there's all sorts of exit strategies on it. I'm a resi agent, so I can put both of them back on our books, declaring it, of course, that I have an interest. And that's the exit strategy. There are some really good deals out there. So if you go to a good agent and speak to them in a nuanced, sophisticated, calm way, they will help you. That's just us. I started Harpers Co in 2010. Got engaged quite late and married, and I bought a house from an estate agent in Bexley Village, and I was treated poorly. Out came this 21-year-old with a watch chain and 3-piece suit from British Home Stores, and he kept calling me mate, and I know he wasn't my mate. I haven't got any mates, and it annoyed me profusely. So I thought, my God, this estate agency business isn't very difficult, is it? If this muppet can do it, then I'm sure I can. So I actually got a good opportunity. There was an estate agent 2 doors away. The old owner, he and I got on. He said to me, Jack, I've done a really good job in grinding this branch into the ground. You're a young, hungry young man. Would you like to buy it? So we went across the pub. I think I gave him £2,000. I bought his business. It was a failing estate agent. He had one filing cabinet, turned it all around. Harpers Co. I called it Harpers Co. I'm Greek, Cypriot, come from the same place as Omar, and I couldn't call it Kipri & Co. It's it doesn't work. And growing up, the stutter was far worse. And the only words I didn't stutter on were words beginning with H. So I'd be buggered if I called it anything beginning with a B or an M. So Harpers Co. has stuck. I liked the branding and the way that we've branded ourselves. And I'll end now, if that's okay. You know what? I think I just hit the right time, and there was a degree of luck. We have won Best Agent in Bexley for the last 4 years running. British Property Awards. There are 2 agents in Bexley that have been in business for 60 plus years, archaic, slightly complacent, fair and good at what they do, but archaic. And we have 3 times more positive Google reviews than them. And I tell our staff, when customers come in through your door, make sure that your service is just that little bit extra special. There's so much bad service these days from brokers, from agents. Just be personal. So I insist that they get up from behind their desk, grab you by your hand, say, hi, I'm so-and-so, can I sit you down? Would you like a cup of tea or coffee? And hear what they've got to say. They might not spend money with you that day, or they might not have a transaction in mind, but they'll tell their friends, you will get repeat business. And so we've grown. We've grown from, I remember the first 6 months, I hadn't made a fee. I think the first fee, we used to be Clive Empson auctioneers and had this pile of Clive Empson catalogues. And I remember someone coming in to buy a catalogue, and he gave me 50p for the catalogue. I held on to it so tight it left a 50p imprint. It was the first fee. I thought, what have I done? And then I flew to Greece, and I was sitting on a deck chair in Greece. I'm talking to a chap from the States, as you do. And he said, oh, what kind of business are you in? And I said, real estate. He said, oh, well, wow. It's quite a cool industry to be in the States. Then I got talking to an English person on my left, and he said, what kind of business do you have? I said, estate agent. Oh, you estate agents. So it's comforting to know at the age of 52, recently become a father, PhD from Cambridge, that I rank just above paedophiles and car dealers. So that's my presentation. One final word, because once I get going, you can't stop me. Don't wait to buy property. Buy property and wait.
Bye.